feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the DaneMoore NBA podcast, and we are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Friday morning. It's January 2nd, and coming up on today's show, I've got Kyle Theige here with me. It's been 2 games since we've done an episode. The Wolves beat the Bulls by 35 on Monday in Chicago, and the Wolves lost to the Hawks by 22 points on Wednesday in Atlanta. 2 very different games, very different results. So I thought the best way to just do this, to cover the widest range, the biggest scope on this, let's just do one of those 5-question episodes that Kyle and I often do on Fridays, where we each prepared a handful of questions that we want to discuss, and hopefully by asking and answering some questions, we could get our most recent snapshot of, where this very clearly up and down Wolves team is at entering 2026. Happy New Year to you, Kyle. What's up, man?
Happy New Year. New Year, same pod. I'm excited to talk about this one today because as we leave all the bad energy in 2025, the year of the wood snake, and we move into the year of the fire horse, there's still some bad energy that has leaked over into the upside down of 2026 for me on this team. And I'm glad we didn't do a pod on New Year's Eve. Again, shout out to the listeners. These last 2 weeks with the holidays have been kind of weird, I think, for our schedule. But I think we're back now, and we'll be back regular schedule next week. But
let me apologize for the Brit episode too. I clarified that on Twitter, but not here. Brit and I recorded the day after the game against Chicago. He was in the studio and everything, and while I make mistakes from time to time of forgetting to turn the microphones on or uploading this or that, this one was just weird. It disappeared. We have all the video, so we could do not going to release a silent podcast, but the audio didn't work, so we lost that Brit episode. So that's why there was a little space here. But like you said, Kyle, Christmas is past, New Year's is past, and I think this is going to get us back on our, today's Friday. We'll take the weekend off, and then we'll get back Monday through Friday again for all of January. But again, sorry for, I said to the listeners, I think on Monday, that we were going to have a Brit pod. On Tuesday we did. It just didn't show up in the world. So
sounds like we missed a hell of an analogy too at the end. But we'll just
you did.
Go check Dane's Twitter feed. But you know what? I think unless you have something else, that sets me up to just ask you my first big question. I've got some big picture ones and some more poignant ones, and we'll talk about the game in Atlanta. We'll talk about, I think, the Bulls game and maybe even the Nets game a little bit. But January 2nd, the first full day after the holiday, first kind of fullish day of the new year. And I just want to ask you, is January 2026 the biggest month of the Tim Connelly era? Because for me, where I'm coming in from this, they have 16 games in January, 4 back-to-backs, 11 against teams that you would say are playoff teams. It was 10 against winning records, and then you threw the Bulls in there because they're a playoff team, because the Bulls and the Heat just live in the play-in. And then after January, there's 3 games before the trade deadline. And if you can hear it in my voice or just my mood, like, I'm always the optimistic guy or the little more glass half full, and I know that can be obnoxious. That's just not where I am right now. I know that they're this morning 9th in offensive rating, 6th in defensive rating, and 8th in net rating on the season. But I just think there's some real issues. And the difference between where we wake up early January this year versus last year was, last year I thought they can't figure out the rotations and all that stuff, but they have 8 good players, right? 8 starters. I don't think that anymore. Like, I think they have 6 good players, and then maybe Bones Highland or Jalen Clark or Mike Conley will have a throwback game. And I think that's pretty concerning. And that'll tie into future questions I have with you about Joan Beringer and backup center and all that stuff. But I think this month is really big because I think the team has a good record, 6 most wins in the NBA. But I also think there's some really concerning trends from December that show that maybe they actually got out to a little faster start than we were giving them credit for. And now they're kind of living off that. And this schedule gets more difficult coming up. They're playing teams that lead the league in pace. They have a lot of road games, back-to-backs. So yeah, is this month a pivotal month for kind of this regime and this organization?
I think absolutely yes. Yeah, I would say it is the biggest, right? And for Tim Connelly specifically, right? Like, what are the times when you could even have a big month, right? Like the draft. Obviously, that's a very big month leading up to the draft all the time, and making those selections. There's scouting, and there's free agency, and free agency isn't what it once was. You're maybe adding a guy with the mid level or rounding out your roster. The biggest month in just kind of team building right now is the month in advance of the trade deadline, and making moves there. Is so often that's when teams are making their big change, less so than they would in the summertime of the kind of cap space era when teams would change drastically in that sort of way. But I think it's the biggest month for Tim Connelly, because it seems as clear as ever in the Tim Connelly era that this roster just needs tweaking, right? And I don't even have exactly in my mind what those tweaks are perfectly, because as we've been talking about, like, you make this shift, you go get a backup center. Okay, which player from the rotation on the guard / wing side did you have to trade to go get that player, or vice versa with the point guard? Tim Connelly not only needs to make an acquisition at the deadline, it feels that he also has to like craft the roster and kind of like repurpose assets to the front court, to the veterans, to the bench guys, to like, it's proving to be, I think, a very talented team. And because of that, one that has won as many games as it has this year, but also a team that runs into these inconsistencies that I think if you are Tim Connelly, you go, okay, we got to address some of this stuff. And what are your ways that you can address that as the president of basketball operations, outside of reshaping the roster or reshaping the coaching staff, right? And that's the predicament that Tim Connelly's in. So I think, yeah, it's the biggest month because I don't know exactly what he's going to do or what would be right. Like it's not right. I'm not looking at any of this. We've talked about point guard versus big. Like, what do they need? I kind of have leanings one way or the other, but honestly, every time I make up a fake trade or try to recraft the Wolves roster in my head, it comes out somewhat lopsided, right? So yeah, I think it's a huge time in crafting this roster in the Tim Connelly era. The only other time I would think of is when they knew they had to trade D'Angelo Russell. It's kind of the same vibe, and what they did there for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
Let's put a pin in that, because I have an interesting take on that. But let me just pull back a little further, because I'm actually kind of setting you up here. My question being, is this the biggest month of the Tim Connelly era? It's not necessarily, to me, just about what trade is he going to make. I look at this as like, and I think you can back me up on this, but like Tim Connelly still has like 100% control over this organization. So he controls the roster. He controls the coaching staff. I don't think this is a Kings thing where there's new ownership, but like they seem to be hands off and let Tim do the stuff. But this kind of trickles into me of like your three bigs thing. Like this month, try it and just see what, like, it's not just about transactions. It's about on the court adjustments. And maybe this will tie into the post-game quotes from Atlanta that I think are super important from Rudy, from Dante, and from Finch. But Finch kind of said after the Hawks game, like, we're not going to do rotation changes. And I like just vehemently disagree with that. Like, I think you need to try some new stuff this month, this biggest month of the Tim Connelly era, so that at the end of the month, like, hey, we are brutal when Rudy's off the floor. We either need to acquire someone in the next 6 days to back him up, or as we get into a future question, like play the guy we drafted 17th overall, because this is a really good draft class. And I understand, and I'm going to save this, but like, I understand Joan Beringer doesn't know what he's doing. Either do Nas and Julius when they play 4-5. Like they just, that is, what is your word? Untenable. If Johan doesn't know how to play defense, we'll either do those two guys when it's just them out there without Rudy. So trying new things, force feeding. Yes, the schedule is going to get harder. And I know now we're kind of talking on both sides of our mouth, but like you got to find some other guys. Like, can you just give Rob another stint, or do you bring Mike back in, right? Like just new things this next month. It has to be experimentation month, so that at the end of the month, like, hey man, we just don't have enough shooting, or we don't have enough rim protection or something. It's bigger than just Tim Connelly making a move. I think a lot of it in the Tim Connelly regime, Chris Finch is under that umbrella. He has to just be better this month. And I think he's going to have to open up the rotation. I understand, and I want to say this, I understand that this coaching staff and this organization has always leaned into, Dane, we need to let the cake bake. But you have to now ask yourself this question compared to last year with 8 starters versus this year with 6 players I think are NBA competent on a given night. Do you have flour? Because if you don't have flour, you can't make a cake. And I don't think this roster has flour to let a cake bake. I think that's what they're going to have to figure out over the next 16 games.
No, I'm with you. I'm going to tie it into one of mine that I had down a ways, but I think this is, to your clarification, that it's not just about a trade. It's about a kind of shift in the vibe, finding some sort of rhythm. Yeah. I just wrote down from one of my questions, what are possible solutions to the Wolves' energy/effort problem that they are talking about having every single week? One, we know there's a problem with the energy and effort. We can watch it. It's pretty clear, the nights and the frequency with which the energy and effort isn't there. We're hearing the coach talk about it and talk about the fact that, there's only so many times you can kind of rip into them with the film session and those sort of things. And we're talking about the players saying we're not playing with enough energy and effort, and we only play with energy and effort, or only consistently bring it the day after Finch and the coaching staff has ripped into us after a coaching or after a film session there. So that's a solution, but it apparently isn't a permanent solution, because I don't know if that you just can't have a rip into the players every single day film session. I guess that makes some sense. I don't know. Maybe it's just required. Maybe that's just the retreatment that this group requires to some extent. But what are the other possible solutions to this? Do you go to, is it to the rotation piece of it? Is it to, I don't know. I mean, I don't really have an answer for this, but I know that they need to find solutions for their energy and effort problem that they clearly and admittedly have.
This is where not having the Brit pod hurts, because I'm really solely focused on the Nets loss, which, by the way, I got a lot of feedback that night that it was an overreaction when I was like, this is an unserious team. They're 12.5-point favorites and they lost by 16. Like, that was a really bad loss. I know you and Jace did a pod and it was like, the Nets came in, second in defensive rating. Like, they're really good in December. That's fine. They're 12.5-point favorites. And then they got spanked in Atlanta. And I think now your question brings me to Atlanta. And I just want to read off a couple quotes that summarize everything you just said. And then I want to give you a really good stat. But I want to shout out Ryan Eichten, young media member, writes for Canis. He was on the scene. Appreciate him. Appreciate Chris Hine. But he talked to the players after the New Year's Eve massacre in Atlanta. And he said, Dante DiVincenzo, how many meetings, how many film sessions, how many times has Finchy had to talk to us? It's just frustrating because you go out in Chicago, you play well, you respond, and you come in here and lay an egg. Dante on the coaching staff, they're doing their job. It's not on us. It sounds so cliche, but at some point you just have to go out there and play. They're not out there playing. It doesn't matter how many plays Finch draws up. Doesn't matter how many defensive schemes we do, is they can't control how hard you play. And I say all of that to give you a really fun stat. Over the last 15 games, the Timberwolves are 27th. This is first half versus second half ratings. Last 15 games, the Wolves are 27th in offense, 21st in defense, and 24th in net rating in the first half. In the second half, they are 6th in offense, 2nd in defense, and 1st in net rating. Over the last 15 games, they just don't come out. And you saw it again, and I know I was texting you dumb shit on New Year's Eve about, like, dude, Julius Randle's body language, we're back to the DMV stuff. And then there was a possession where him and Ant were just standing at the half-court line while their other teammates were fighting for a loose ball that ended up in an Atlanta Hawks 3. You can't criticize Julius Randle's body language without criticizing Anthony Edwards throwing his towel and leaving the bench. Like, that's kind of, I don't think I'm overreacting at this point. I think there's a bigger issue going on, and it's starting to leak onto the court, a la kind of like when Rudy punched Kyle a couple of years ago. Like that wasn't a kumbaya moment, and then all of a sudden he just got frustrated. Like that was maybe Kyle being like, I'm tired of how you guys treat this guy. So that first half, second half split over the last 15 games, which essentially represents the month of December, tells you that this team just doesn't come out in the first half ready to play. Is that because of the coaches? Is that because of the players? Whatever. And then something happens in halftime and they try to claw their way back, and it usually worked. But it doesn't work anymore, and it didn't work against the Hawks. They got blown out, and it didn't work against the Nets, and they got lucky against the Bucks. Like, it's an issue now, and it goes all the way back to your question of what is the core thing about this lack of, playing with their food, cupcake schedule, attention to detail, whatever. It's a real thing, and it's kind of a blemish on this season.
Well, and I think the Bulls game even too. What was
great
that?
point? Yeah, yeah.
It was, Ant in the first quarter of the Bulls game plays the entire first quarter as he always does. Takes one shot, misses it, ends the quarter with 1 point, 2 rebounds, 0 assists. He sits out for the first 6 minutes of the second quarter, as he always does. The score at that point, when Ant checks back into the game midway through the second quarter, this is in Chicago. This is the good game this week. They're down 32-41. And from that point on in the game, Ant plays 20 minutes, the rest of the game, right? Scores 22 points, has 0 rebounds. That's annoying, but has 4 assists, shoots 9 of 12 from 2, 2 of 4 from 3, was really good. Put the Chicago Bulls away. And from that point in time, when Ant checked into the game midway through the second quarter, down 9 points to the end of the game, the Wolves win those, what would that be? 32 minutes or 30 minutes by a score of 104-60. So they did turn it on, and they absolutely can turn it on. And there's other games we can point to of slow first quarters and those sort of things. And like you said, the last 15 games is very, very much a trend. The thing is I'm focusing on why did it work in the Bulls game, right? Like, why were they able to do it then and you're not able at another time? And the answer is because the Bulls stink.
And Josh Giddey went out.
Josh Giddey went out. Kobe White was out. And then the Chicago Bulls become the perfect team for the Wolves to take advantage of. And they did. And they did it to an awesome degree. They won the last 40 minutes by 40 or 30 minutes by 44 points. And they killed that. But it's because once the level of the competition drops down, the Wolves do not have to play sharply to dominate that. Ant dominated because who's gonna guard him one-on-one? Who's going to limit his advantage in a one-on-one situation on that Bulls team there?
Which ironically,
Williams tried one possession there, but it's not going to happen. And then I think even more critically in these games where the Wolves are able to make these comebacks and drive it, it's that the team has nothing for Julius Randle, right? And that's a credit to Julius Randle. Like, the guy they had to guard him was Matas Buzelis. So what did the Bulls do? The very first possession of the game and the very beginning, remember how they're playing defense? Zone. Possession 1. Because they go, we can't guard Ant, we can't guard Julius in a traditional matchup situation. And when that's the case, the Wolves kill, as they did. They kill. But that's not a good, it's hard for me to take to create a lot of belief from a game like that, given that those were the circumstances that it was under. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't know. It felt weird. It felt weird. And honestly, we did the pod with Britt, and I had this conversation before the Atlanta game. I go, I don't feel anywhere near as good about that game as the score suggests, because the start of the game was just like all the other starts of the games where there's no energy there. And then when they turned it up, it worked. They were able to come back because they just had so many advantages in that, which tells you super talented team, not super sharp team. And then the Atlanta game happens.
Well, but what a perfect segue from the Bulls game, what you just said, to the Hawks game. Because you said, okay, Josh Giddey goes out, Kobe White goes out for the Bulls on whatever night that was, Monday or Tuesday. Right. Now they have, not that those guys were going to defend Ant, but what do they have now? What do they have to throw at Ant? Ant could kind of bring them back. Also, I mean, you have to shout out Julius, who had 13 assists and no turnovers. They were both good that game. The difference is then they went to Atlanta, and Atlanta just plays 5 Demigorgons the entire time. they all look the same. Like they're all just switchable, 6'7", long, Jalen Johnson, Daniels, Okongwu, Nikhil. Like they're really fun and good. And Ricochet without Trey. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that now. Like there's no Kobe White's on the floor for you to attack. Like this was a really long, good defensive team. They brought the same energy in the first quarter. All of a sudden they're down 20, and then they weren't able to fight their way back. And then it got really ugly. And I think it was a little bit of that frustration of like, kind of like a spoiled kid. Like, oh, well, when we suck in the first half against bad teams, we usually figure it out. It's like, no, the Hawks had lost 7 in a row and were very motivated to kind of clean the slate, but they just never let the Wolves back into that game. And again, I just think, shout out to Ryan Eichten for giving me those stats, but you're basically the 24th best team in the league in the first half in December and the first team in the second half. That's unsustainable. Like that's actually not cool. That's not something I'd hang my hat on and say, well, the halftime speeches from the coaching staff are really good. No, that's like unacceptable because that's not any ways a healthy diet come playoff time against teams that play well in both halves. Like that's just not going to work. And it is kind of, again, why big picture January 2026, I'm like, this is a pretty big stretch of games coming up.
Yeah. Let's grab our break and then we'll jump in with some more questions. Today's show is brought to you by Treasure Island Resort and Casino. I'm kind of springing this on you, Kyle, but do you want to tell people? I have more of the details. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what it is we're going to be doing at TI?
Yeah, a couple weeks from now, Saturday, January 17th, Dane will fill in the time. We're just going to be doing another one of those live podcasts at Treasure Island. I think, can I say we're going to have the Crunch Wears No Pants guys on the scene as well. So we're going to just hang out. I think they play the Spurs that night. It's fun to just get people together in the Parlay Lounge and watch a game, talk about it. Again, we do the podcast, but then we also just kind of hang around. And whether you're doing dry January like I am, whatever, we'll have some waters and some sodas, but we can just watch the game, talk about it, answer some questions, and just kind of check in. I think it's important to do that with the people that consume our show and just kind of get a vibe for where this team is halfway into what I'm calling the biggest month of the Tim Connelly era. So yeah, Saturday, July 17th, safe travels on the roads, January 17th. And what time is that? 7 p.m.?
Yeah. So it's one of those where there's a game live show. A lot of the times when we've done them at Falling Knife or whatever, the event is the podcast. How this is going to work is we're going to do a live show at 6:00 on January 17th at Treasure Island. Crunch Wears No Pants guys will be there, and then we'll go for an hour, and the game will start at 7:00. We'll watch that game in the Parlay Lounge with everybody else. It's against the Spurs. I think that'll be a fun one to watch. You want to get there a little bit early. We'll be around at 5 p.m. doing a happy hour before. So happy hour 5. I'm not doing dry January. Live recording at 6:00 and 7 p.m. Is tip off to watch the game. So fun to watch the game. Hopefully, if you listen to this pod, you enjoy listening to us do a live pod as well. You can get a room at ticasino.com. Use the promo code Wolves. You'll earn 20% off a one-night stay if you do want to stay the night at Treasure Island. Again, you can do that by calling them or going to the website. The promo code is Wolves to earn 20% off that one night stay. Yep. Treasure Island Resort and Casino. Sorry for the long break there, but want to, put that on your radar. I guess that's only 2 weeks away from now. So we'll be there. Visit ticasino.com for more information.
Remember the last game, not to make a casino pun, but we're good luck. The last game that we did one of these was that Pistons game where all hell broke loose at the end. And then Ant catches the ball in the slot, double team, takes a terrible 3, but he hits it to win the game. So I would imagine this will be a fun game. Wolves Spurs. Come on to Treasure Island on Saturday, January 17th.
January 17th. All right. Give me another one of your questions, Kyle.
Well, I kind of spoiled it by reading those quotes from Dante, but now I just want to ask you the question of, again, Dante on the coaching staff. They're doing their job. It's on us. It sounds so cliche, but at some point you just have to go out there and play. Why does this always happen? And I want to ask you specifically, because you're like the top guy who's in the locker room all these times. You're around all these guys. Like, why over the Finch tenure, from Kyle Anderson to Kat to Ant to Julius to now Dante, do these guys go out of the way to say, it's not the coaching staff, it's us. Because from a media standpoint, or like fans, like they get pissed off of like, oh, you're covering up for the coaching staff, you're being too protective of Finchie. And it's like, I was really pissed off on New Year's Eve. And like, I was like, this is, and then it's like, why is Dante unprovoked saying those things? Right. Unless it's like low key true. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm just going to toss it to you, but like when I see the people be like, oh, you got to get rid of Finch and put Mike Inori in there, like if that's going to really change anything. But if all these guys say like, we have the answers to the test, we just circle the wrong bubble all the time. Like this is now another trend. Like this is a half dozen players over the last couple of years that go out of their way to say this. And it just kind of makes me like, WTF.
Yeah, no, I'm with that too. And I'll echo that. I will say it's not like talking about Finch and the job he's doing should be off limits. You know, 100%. I mean, you know, we're doing many episodes every week and meticulously critiquing the best players on this team. We do that with Ant all the time, do with Julius all the time, Rudy all the time, right? Chris Finch is not above reproach here. And at some point, a pattern going on for as long as it's gone on is somewhat on the coach to, you know, reformat it, but would it do something so that this doesn't keep happening? And the something, as the players are saying, as the coaches are saying, is what seems to work is when we really light into them and these film sessions and make them understand and you know, the next game it's better. But this team has like an attitude issue. It's got an energy and effort issue. It's okay to have conversations about what Finch is or is not doing to, I don't know, recorrect that. Now, we do need to also weigh in the point from the players that you're bringing up there, which is they are explicitly saying and have over and over again that this is an us thing. We are not bringing forth the consistent effort. So it's on them at least as much as it is on the coach. And so you look at the Chris Finch era, and I think you have to look at common denominators of, you know, who's been on the team. I think Ant is having his most dynamic offensive season of his career from a scoring standpoint. I do not think Ant has taken a step forward, and certainly not a big step forward in this capacity of bringing more consistent effort and doing so from the jump of the game. I mean, there was actually, I think I have a clip of it. I don't know if I'll be able to find it really quick, but there's even in that Chicago game, again, the good game. This is one play where Ant's guarding Ayo Dosunmu, quote unquote, guarding in the corner. Dosunmu kind of runs around to the other side and somebody drives to the basket and Ant is just kind of standing there in kind of by the lane. Dosunmu, his man, clearly just goes right past him, gets the offensive rebound, layup, lay-in. And it was 6 minutes into the game or whatever. And a game that Ant finished the night with only 2 rebounds. I think a lot of it is Ant, man. I do. When we're talking specifically about consistency of energy and effort, it isn't consistent from Ant. He has incredible highs, and even has this month had numerous incredible highs in the end of the game against Denver and what he did against Oklahoma City. But it's not anywhere near the same energy level from a consistency standpoint when the opponent is not up to snuff, right? And what this team needs is to address this issue that's going on right now that is kind of toxic, of inconsistent energy and effort that is making things a little weird. It's putting your coach on the hot seat. It's got a lot of your players straining here. They need that from Ant. They need more. You know, I think they need more from Ant to address this. And again, maybe it's on Finch to work with Ant to how do you do this? I don't think this is an Ant alone issue, but I also don't think it's a Finch alone issue, right? I think if this improves, it's a collective effort, but it starts with the 2 top people. and maybe even if you want to throw Tim Connelly in there too, Chris Finch to continue to address the issues surrounding energy and effort, Ant to go out and execute and show the way to play with energy and effort, and then Tim Connelly to adjust the roster if you have a group of guys who can't do that at a consistency level that you believe in. Do you think it's weird or harsh on Ant to be critiquing him in this way when even in a game like the Atlanta game where there's not energy and effort, he still individually has a huge night? Like, am I pointing in the wrong direction here, or is it in your mind fair to be pointing at Ant with some of this?
I think I'm on an island on this one, but I think it's a compliment to be criticizing him and saying at the top of the list, you just have to be better. And if you are, under 21 and an FC fan and like you just think we're being harsh, go look at what's going on with Luka Doncic right now with the Lakers, because his defense now might be historically bad, and as good as he is offensively, like Lakers fans are being like, dude, you have to give us something. And Luka's what, third best player in the league?
That's what that team needs. It's such a good example because what do the Lakers need right now? They need like the defense. That's it.
They're like bottom 5 in defensive rating right now. Like they have cratered. They don't have the wings around him. Like I said, Luka could be like, dude, I don't have my center, my rim protectors, DeAndre Ayton. Like he could make the excuses. Okay. Just like, again, we still have a couple weeks of this, Dane. So hold on. Like Patrick Mahomes, my offensive line is bad. My wide receivers are Sky Moore. It's like, yeah, but you're fucking Patrick Mahomes. Like at some point, like we just hold these guys to a higher standard when you have the shoe and you make the money and like you are that good. And I don't think this is, and again, if you want to now be like, well, if you are critical of Ant doing that, how about Dante shooting 2 of 10? Yeah, Dante, 2 more. Like this isn't, I'm not picking on anyone. I've always made this stupid ass Luke Ridnour comment. Like, I don't really care who's on the back of the jersey. Like, I want the team to win basketball games. And I thought in the Atlanta game, and I think it's because it was in Atlanta, and I think that led to some of the frustration, but Ant was trying to like bring them back a little bit. But it was, instead of the Bulls, it was the demigorgons of the switchable 5 Atlanta Hawks, and he just couldn't do it by himself. And when he gets into that mode, I don't know if you want to throw in the wide receiver thing, but like sometimes the other guys on the team then are like, oh shit, he is going to go dribble mid-range. And he might hit it. But if he doesn't hit it, that's just like 20 seconds where Julius and Nas and Rudy just stand there and there's not a lot of ball movement. And you had that.
Explain that analogy. Explain the wide receiver one. Because
can you say it? Because I don't remember what it was, but it was really good.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I was watching the Atlanta game, and it was specifically after numerous times where I'd seen Julius Randle give the ball to Anthony Edwards in a half-court offensive possession, and kind of the speed at which he sauntered over to the dunker spot or the wing, like just so slow and so clearly being like, Ant, here is the baton, your turn to run. I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is analogous to when you look at the wide receiver in football and you can tell by their body language that it's probably a running play, And I think there's not just Julius specific. I think there's a ton of that body language, or I should just say it's very clear when the Wolves, if you look at the other 4 players, when the Wolves are running an action through Ant, that it's an action being run through Ant. There is no like real misdirection in it, because if I'm guarding Julius Randle here and he gives the ball to Ant and meanders over to the other side of the floor, I'm pretty sure Julius isn't all of a sudden going to peel off of a pin down or curl or something here and present himself in the middle of the lane to be open. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another step over towards Ant, and I'm going to give more help in the gap there. So when Ant tries to get by his guy, I'm there for help. It just seems like a very obvious offense right now, especially for an offense that is predicated on the idea of randomness. Why is this an unstructured offense that I know exactly what they're doing all the time? That I think is on the players.
And Ant fan club, I got you, because that's a great analogy. Julius Randle, bad body language, just mopey to the corner like Eeyore. Ant, dribble, dribble, dribble. Include your teammates. Bad Ant. Coaching staff, Chris Finch. Let's throw a little more dynamic playmaking into this. Like, let's call something a little better than just give the ball to Ant and everyone else just goes and stands and watch.
Right.
Tim Connelly, if Ant makes a great play, we're getting really close to I can't have Jalen Clark shooting the corner three. Like, he made the right pass and Jalen Clark is going to go 26% from the corner. Like, I am coming at you truly transparently that this is the biggest month of this regime because it's everyone. It is on everyone. You want to throw Jaden in the mix? Sure. Like, Jaden, you have to just manufacture more ways to get yours a little bit now when everything's at full strength, right? Because without Julius or without Ant, like, you've shown you're a dude. You have to just do that again. Like Naz Reid, you wanted 100 million. You got 100 million. You can't put up 6 points in Atlanta. You got to be the guy on a team that has 6 good players. Like, you got to be a dude that brings it. And if you can't do that, go grab 12 rebounds. Do something else. So I think big picture, I mean, again, you set this up really well. Like, the coaching staff has to take some of the blame for this. The first half, second half numbers are egregious now. And it's something I'm going to look at a month from now to be like, did they fix some of that? But to me, this is an organizational thing where everyone comes in and everyone takes some blame. And maybe that's therapeutic, but at the end of the day, man, like, I'm just such a football guy that I do think when you win, the quarterback gets the interview, and when you lose, the quarterback kind of gets thrown under the bus, and Ant's the quarterback. Like, that is just clear as day. And it'll be interesting to see how they kind of they do respond, right? I'm sure they had a film session outside of Live one of these days in Miami where they're like, hey, we can't do this again. And I'm sure they'll come out playing harder against Miami. But man, if they don't and they get spanked again this weekend in Miami, I'm going to be thinking about like that towel throw and just walking off the court of like, okay, there's a much bigger issues here with this team.
And okay, so I haven't been around the team for, I don't know, like the last week. Like, I wasn't in Chicago or Atlanta, and it was, spotty around Christmas. So I've seen a lot of people make a lot of the towel throw and stuff like that. And the Timberwolves basketball quote that Ant had, the game previous. Honestly, I don't think it's what people are making of it.
I don't either. No.
But it signals something, so like, it's not nothing. We shouldn't just brush over the fact that Ant left the court in the middle of the game. Like, that's a serious thing. And Ant talking about playing without effort and energy, just being Timberwolves basketball, even if in a joking sort of way, not great. I'm saying, as someone who is around the team a lot of the time and has been there around the team at other times when things have not been level, right? It hasn't felt like that to me. It hasn't, prior to Christmas, it didn't feel like this team was having real interpersonal, collisions. I always kind of have my eye on what exactly is Julius feeling and showing. And that'll be my next question I get to. But I will just say, for me and for people, I have not seen the vibes to be something toxic in the ways that, for example, they were at this time in 2023, right before they made the trade for Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You could be around and you could tell, like, this is right. Obviously back in the day with the weird Jimmy was like half on the team here. You can feel that. And you can even feel some of those things in advance of it, or people just talk to you. That hasn't been my experience thus far this season. I don't know if something has happened over the last week or 10 days when I haven't been around the team, if some sort of collision happened. I don't know. And I might not even have known about it, even if I was there all the time. But a lot of people hit me up about that and about the Ant one specifically. And like, well, what other players do? Like, what other star players are doing that? I'm like, you guys got to understand, like, Ant isn't normal. Like, he doesn't do, like, it's not the same as other like star players in all of these great ways with Ant. Like, he's just uniquely himself. And I think that's an example of him being uniquely himself. Again, I wasn't there. Maybe there's some other stuff going on. Certainly he's playing at home. You know, he's not happy about the performance they put out there when he's back in Atlanta. But I surprisingly, when I was just watching that game at home on New Year's Eve and Ant did it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me, which is maybe indicative of like a bigger issue here, but I don't know, man.
No, I think you.
I don't think. Yeah.
I think you slowed.
Right?
I think you. I know exactly what you're saying, and I also 100% agree with you. Like, because we live in this era now where you throw a towel in there and you walk off the bench, and it's like, is he demanding a trade? Like, what did he like on Instagram? Like, I'm with you on all that stuff not being a real thing. I just, as a devil's advocate, though, I think Jaden McDaniels for a while was becoming more and more internally frustrated, and then the phrase boils over. And he punched a wall. And I think Kyle Anderson, Rudy Gobert's relationship was growingly frustrated, and it boiled over to an on-court situation that you rarely see, and they punched a teammate. And I think in this situation, I'm so with you on, you can't love Ant for all the cool shit and unfilteredness he says in media, and then not realize this was just him being like the other side of that, like unfiltered, like I'm just throwing the towel and walking off the bench. But I do think, devil's advocacy, that it was like a boiling over moment for him, that I'm sure the next time he didn't do media that night.
Sure.
That's not new to you and I, especially you. Like he declines a lot of media things, but I think the next time he speaks, whether that be at a shoot around or whatever, he's going to be like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Finchie was right. I got to stay on the bench. I got hot or whatever in Atlanta. But, you know, those little things at least put a thought in your mind of like, yes, is there something more frustrating behind the scenes that either gets squashed at a film session, and you come out and you beat the Heat by 14 in Miami, or, you know, if they're down 22 in the second quarter against the Heat, you're gonna think about that at least. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I'm with you on the grander take. Yeah.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks, and while your fantasy football season may be over, there is still plenty of daily fantasy to be played over at Prize Picks this weekend. One, you can still play fantasy football by making some Week 18 picks. I was looking, that Ravens Steelers game is going to be a real game. You can pick more or less than 0.5 touchdowns scored this week for Derrick Henry in that game. I like his odds there to get a touchdown. You can also play the college football bowl games. If you check Prize Picks, pretty much anytime this weekend, there will be a bowl game going on. You can make picks for it from those games. I think for college football, it's kind of fun to do the live picks on there. Maybe you are familiar with the team, but you watch the first half, put a Prize Picks lineup together for the second half based on their live picks they have going on there. And then 3 this weekend, we got 2 Wolves games this weekend. You can put together a Prize Picks lineup with players from Wolves Heat on Saturday or Wolves Wizards on Sunday. There's always something going on over at Prize Picks. If you don't yet have a Prize Picks account and want to put together a lineup, all you got to do is put in the promo code DANE when you sign up. You'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code DANE when you create your account. Yeah, and I think the Jaden one and the Kyle and Rudy example are a perfect example of also what I'm kind of talking about. Like with Jaden at that time, being around the team, and we talked about it, like we were talking about him being emotionally volatile at that time. There was signals going on. I mean, and you could see it on the floor even. It wasn't like there was signals. That's, you know what I'm saying? There was signals before Jaden punched the wall, and there were certainly signals between that Kyle and Rudy dynamic in advance of it. I'm just saying I'm not seeing those signals. What I'm seeing, moreover, is what I saw from this team in December and January last year, where they get tired and moody as they hit sort of Q2 of the season.
Yeah.
And they're tired and moody. It was like that last year. It was like literally this day. I think it was January 4th, a year ago. So not literally this day, 2 days from now, a year ago, where Ant had the big blew up about not liking the double teams after the Boston game. And he was just moodier, like I think what happens with this team, and maybe more so than it does to other teams, is the wear and tear of a season and the energy and those sort of things hit them at this time of year. That's not an excuse. Every team is doing it. I do think it hits this team harder, and you factor in fatigue with some personalities that tend to skew moody. Julius, Jaden, Rudy, and like it's this. I think it's a lot of the personality of this team. I don't know. Maybe people are just saying that, hearing me say this is all a bunch of blah blah blah, whatever. But it does feel different to me, or I haven't seen it when I've been around the team. But again, haven't been around the team much in the last 10 days.
And none of the top 10 teams in the West, the 10 playoff teams right now in the West, are 6-4 or 5-5 over their last 10. They're all kind of going through the dog days. So I'm with you on that. And just to clarify, to put a bow on Towelgate, it seemed like in the moment that Ant was frustrated because Finch was like, all right, we're just going to pull the plug on this game and you're not going to be able to try to fight your way back. At least that's what it seemed from the reporting on the scene. Mm-hmm. It just kind of tie into what we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes of a team that digs themselves too much of a hole. And the coach was finally like, all right, we're just going to throw this one away. And he wanted to keep fighting. So commendable in that sense. Got to stay on the bench. Do you have another question?
I do. Is the Julius Randle from the beginning of the season coming back? What do you think?
What do you think?
No, I don't think so. I still think, I don't think that means this Julius Randle is going to be the Julius Randle the rest of the way. I think he came in incredible shape, ready to go, like at the beginning of the season, which isn't say, I'm not saying he's not in incredible shape but ready to go, but like he jumped on the beginning of the season in a big way and was really, really good that first month of the season. And obviously a big variable in that time, just for the team in general, is Ant missed 7 games in that first month with the 2 injuries. And I think in that time when Ant missed that 5-game window, when he had the hamstring, back all the way to LA, it was almost like good watering of the good Julius, right? Like, okay, Ant's not out here playing through Julius. Julius is playing really well, and they profited from it there. So long as Ant is healthy, I wonder what the best version of Julius can be on this team. And I don't think we know that we could say it's October, November Julius. We haven't seen that with Ant fully flowered, like simultaneously those two things. So I'm skeptical of that. Also, his numbers are just like dropping. Randle's numbers have just been dropping in a major way. The 3-point percentage is down to 32%. And then, you just look at some of the overall shooting numbers. They're just not that powerful. 67% at the rim, 43% from mid-range, 33% from 3. So if that's your shot percentages that you're getting from Julius Randle, that in and of itself is not enough to be an all-star, right? Those aren't all-star level shooting percentages, though they're typically Julius Randle's career-long shooting percentages. He shoots the same amount about those percentages, about the same frequency from the rim, mid-range, 3-point range as he always has. He plays Julius Randle basketball. Now, what makes Julius Randle, or has previously made Julius Randle, an all-NBA or all-star caliber player is, let's say all-star first, is if the 3-point percentage is a lot better and you're getting that solid efficiency from the rim and mid-range, plus 40% 3-point shooting, plus he always comes with a good free throw rate, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're like, okay, the individual scoring when the 3-point shot there, that is pretty powerful, right? Well, the 3-point has kind of abandoned him. Free throw rate still really good, gets to the free throw line a lot. But I think then the all NBA version of Julius Randle also includes high level playmaking, which he is for a high level playmaker. His assist percentage this season is 26.1%. That's really high. Like 26% of the shots when he's on the floor are generated by an assist from him. Of the buckets are generated by assist from Julius Randle. The only 2 bigs in the NBA who who have a better assist percentage than Julius Randle are Nikola Jokic and Alperen Şengün, the best passing bigs in the league. But Julius Randle is in that group too. What I'm learning as we spend year 2 of the Julius Randle experience is you really need like all of those things to be working, the 3-point shot and the assisting and the mediocre efficiency from the rim and mid-range for him to be a really, really good offensive player. And what's happened is the 3-point shot has largely abandoned him for the last month, 6 weeks, right? You talked about that last time we recorded, just it going down month by month. But the assist percentage is random now. Like, it's not random. It's not every game that he's giving you that. Against the Bulls, as we talked about, when they're in a zone, or Matas Buzelis is guarding Julius Randle, elite. 14 assists in that game, no turnovers. But I guess my bigger question is, what is bankable from Julius Randle, even offensively? And I don't think the player that he was at the beginning of the season is bankable, given that it's not sustaining, and given that we see when the level of opponent increases, his individual production as a shooter and a passer falls apart. And that's without me saying anything about the defense. That is just offense. And frankly, at the beginning of the season, it was pretty much just offense that you were getting from Julius Randle. You're not going to get high-level defense from him. So that's your standard on defense, not high level from Julius Randle. You need a lot from him offensively in areas that he can't bring every single night, which is the 3-point shooting and the passing, along with the individual isolation scoring, because that's really hard. It's really hard to be all of those sort of things. He had at the beginning of the year. It just doesn't seem bankable from him right now, which is making the defensive issues a lot more painful.
You said it better than I could. So I will just reiterate that I think the question of can you get that Julius back falls under my umbrella of this is the biggest month of the Tim Connelly era. Because if you cannot, and I'm just throwing some firecrackers into the beer fridge here. I'm not even sure I totally believe in this, but if you can't get that back, are you once again at a crossroads where you have to find a way to turn a southpaw drafted by the Lakers into 2 lesser players and a draft pick at the trade deadline to fix it? Because you did it the first time with D'Angelo Russell to trade that just didn't really fit or wasn't working or whatever for 2 lesser players that unlocked some things and a draft pick to build up the treasure chest. And do you have to do that again here? And we're not doing Julius Randle trades today. There's a lot of issues on this team. They're not all just Julius Randle. But if you can't get that back, I do think that is a big question that needs to be figured out in January. Because if you can't, man, I don't know how you move forward.
So I know we don't need to go deep into Julius Randle specific trade talk, but you said trading him for 2 players like the Wolves did for D'Angelo Russell with Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Is that, I know this team doesn't have depth, but do you like the idea of 2 players for Julius Randle? Or maybe this could be another question we could throw in there, or the idea of trading Julius Randle and another player for 1 guy, right? Like getting a 1 for 2 rather than getting 2 for 1. I think those are different things.
Those are different things. You take great care of me. I think I'm the last person you want to ask about trade stuff because my brain kind of gets all over the place, but I also will be fully transparent. I didn't do anything on New Year's, and I watched the entire Jazz Clippers game, and Kyle Anderson was hooping. Okay. And I think going back to the all the stuff we just talked about, like the leadership thing, and like I'd love to do a leadership power ranking with you at some point. Like they had Pat Bev for a year, they had Kyle Anderson, like Finch had extensions of guys that could lead, but they could do it on the court. I think Mike Conley now has that baton, and Mike can't do it on the court. And that's why I think some of this leadership stuff is starting to leak into like they don't look good. So I don't know. To answer your question, I will say this. I think the team does again have 6 good players. Last year they had 8 really good players, and now Nickeil left to Atlanta. Dante had to start, and Mike kind of fell off the cliff. So now you're down to 6 starters or whatever. So if they sent out 1 and brought in 2 lesser but good players, like that would help me because Bones Highland, who I think has been really good, is still a little volatile, right? And then the young guys just don't give you anything. So that's for you and smarter people to discuss. But I see the point, right? Like, do you put Julius and Mike together if that's legal in a contract, and now you're aiming for like what, $40 million coming back or whatever? So it's a great question.
Yeah, no, and you're right. Like last season's team, when they had 8 starting caliber players, like be like, wait a minute, definitely don't need to get 2 players for 1, right?
Correct.
Like this other good players not getting enough room to play. This team does not have the solid 8 bench guys. So in a way, it would make sense to get 2 guys, 1 rotation player for 2 rotation players. Granted they were good enough, but the ripple effect of that would be like, Rob Dillingham is deep on the bench now. Wait till you bring in another guy, right? That's what happened to him in the first place. That's what threw off the whole Rob Dillingham thing in the first place, was that as a rookie, he was supposed to be in the rotation. And then they got 2 guys for Karl Anthony Towns, and 2 of which are like kind of point guardy, and Dante and Julius, and Rob got pushed out of it, So if they were to get 2 guys back, I'm just saying there would be some of the deeper bench guys would not be playing. And we've talked a lot I just want to be fair. Like, we've talked a lot this season about, well, if you're going to play them, like, they need opportunity. That would kill opportunity
for sure.
In that sort of way. I think it's an interest, and maybe we could do this at a future date, but just like the general idea of what level of player the Wolves are or should be targeting at the deadline. Is it a $40 million player? Is it the Julius plus Mike, the Julius plus Dante, the Nas plus Dante, those type of deals? That's your path to 40 million. We just got to remember what's going out in those 2. The $15, $12 million type of player is a very different calculation, right? Because you could go get a $12 million player without trading anybody who's currently in your rotation. It's not going to have the same impact, but it's not going to come at the same cost. So I think that's a really interesting thing with this team right now, because maybe trading for the 12 million player is the getting 2 $12 million players. And that's one thing. Whereas the $40 million player is another thing there. I don't know. And to your Tim Connelly thing, that's why this is a big month in the Tim Connelly era too, specifically from diagnosing what does this team need most? That's hard.
I have one more question, but I do just want to take a 30-second timeout, because this is you have to embrace the irony of some of this stuff. That I'm just warning you right now. I think Julius Randle trade talks are going to be something that gets brought up a lot in January. I just think that's the nature of the beast. And that's exactly where we were last year at this time. And I, full disclosure, I've kind of been a loser behind the scenes, because this thing has frustrated me more than ever. And I've been a jerk, but I remember last year at this time, you're like, this is the least fun I've ever had doing this, because everything was so moody and it felt like it was stale. And that's the word I come back to all the time watching this, is stale. And it might not be Julius. Maybe you move off of a Nas Reed, like you said, into Dante, and that unlocks Julius. I don't agree anymore with let the cake bake. I just don't, because I don't think they have the right ingredients, and you need 5 of them to make it work. And I don't think that will work, but it is kind of a dumb segue into my last question. And I just wrote, this isn't a question. It's just a burning statement. I think you have to play Joan Beringer. I just do. I kind of teased that at the top. Again, he doesn't really know concepts. He doesn't really know English, as Chris Hine pointed out in his really good article. I just no longer care. I do wonder if in the NBA sometimes just being long and athletic is good enough. And again, and you this is where you could really bury me, because you see it better than I do. But the Nas Julius 4-5 thing is it has to be done. Jake Painting crushed it at House and Grouse, doing the video on it. You've talked about that has to be done. And if you do it, it has to be Jalen and Jaden and Ant are out there with him at the same time to at least provide some sort of resistance. Again, Beringer's garbage time minutes. I'm not, I know he has as many blocks now in limited time as Julius has all season, which is kind of a crazy stat. But I just think you got to throw him out there in January for this month, to my larger point of, man, if he really sinks and can't tread water, then your Robert Williams take makes a lot of sense. But I am very concerned about a team trying to patch holes with limited assets before at least acknowledging what do we have in our own cupboard before we go. You know, they don't have a lot of second round picks coming up. Like, you sure as hell really can't trade any of your own future first. I want to at least see what they have before, again, experiment month.
Today's show is brought to you by Storyworth Memoirs, and it's been fun to have Storyworth back as a holiday season gift option for your parents or loved ones this holiday season. And it's not too late to pull the trigger on maybe a late gift option if you missed out there. I think if you're around my age, this is a great gift to give your parents, or if you have grandparents. The idea behind Storyworth is uncovering stories you didn't know about your loved one. How it works is each week, Storyworth emails a loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to choose. Questions like, what were your favorite toys as a child? What are you most proud of? All sorts of different types of questions. And all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a short story. After a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. Photos are printed in color, and it will be a treasure that your loved one and you will be able to share and revisit for generations. Customers really do love Storyworth. They printed over 1 million books and preserved 35 million family stories since their founding 13 years ago. They also have over 48,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. I used Storyworth this holiday season, and I think you should too. Give your loved ones a unique keepsake you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth Memoirs. Right now, save $10 or more during the holiday sale when you go to storyworth.com/DaneMoore. That's storyworth.com/DaneMoore to save $10 on your order. Yeah, no, and let's talk about Beringer a little bit through the lens of adding a big at some point to this team, which is, I've said, I think adding a backup big would have a greater positive impact than adding a backup point guard, because to Bones Highland's credit, I think he's been
for sure
a decent, flotsam there in for a position that was struggling, and for no cost, for a minimum contract. That's a win. I think he's stepping in there. So my head is more on the front court, and that is from watching it. From watching how different this team is when Rudy's on the floor to when Rudy's not on the floor. And I went through it. 67% of the non-garbage time minutes or possessions, however you want to put it, the real minutes, have been with Rudy Gobert on the floor, right? Rudy's out there at the 5, and somebody else is with him in the front court. Randle, if it starts, Reed, sometimes McDaniels, right, as the 4 next to him. That's 2/3 of the minutes. 28% of the minutes are Reed, Randle, no Gobert. That is a lot of minutes. That it's about like 14 minutes a game that those guys are on average are playing in that time. And then 5% of the minutes are just one of Reed or Randle are out there as the center. And then like Jaden's out there at the 4, or maybe Terrence Shannon Jr. has played some 4 this season. The 28% can't stay. I think that's where I'm at. It can't be 28% of the minutes being Reed and Randle as your front court, because that group has struggled defensively all season and really struggles defensively when they need to be guarding a dynamic scoring big and or a dynamic scoring point guard who likes to play and pick and roll. They cannot limit that there. So if that was agreed upon, that those are not tenable minutes for Reed and Randle to be out there together as the only bigs, then what are your alternatives? The only one on the roster right now, unless we're going to say Leonard Miller, would be Joan Beringer, right? To go in and give specifically those minutes some rim protection out there, some other big body out there. And that would potentially improve the defense in the non-Rudy minutes in a big way, which this team desperately needs. The problem with that, and why in Finch's defense, I would imagine, of why he's saying, we're not going to make major rotation shifts, is believes the ripple effect would be too complicated. If you bring in Joan Beringer to play 15 minutes a game, and you want to keep Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, and Naz Reid all at their same minute loads, which they should. Those are probably 3 of your 5 best players. Like, those guys need to all be playing 28 plus, right? 30 plus minutes a night. Well, if you bring Beringer in to the rotation for 15 minutes as a backup 5, what happens? You can't just put him in without taking some of Reed or Randle or Gobert's minutes. So the only way I see to do this, as we've laid this out before, is just not even because I'm certain it will work, but the only pathway to keep their minutes the same is to repurpose those 15 minutes a night that Beringer is taking into Naz at the 3. That's the only way that would work. Again, I don't know if that's going to work, but if you want to play Beringer, which maybe you do now, I think you almost certainly want to in, next season. Well, what's the plan then? How do you play if you're going to have Rudy, Reed, and Randle all on the team? How do you also play Joan Beringer 15 minutes a night without doing it? It's a zero sum. Like, I don't see how else this could possibly happen. And if you want to say, well, Berenger's not ready and he's not going to play, it's not an issue. Well, then I think you need to, if Beringer can't play right now, then I think you really need to be considering going to get a backup 5.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case too, if you're going to get a backup 5, you're trying to play them 15 minutes a night. So whose minutes does he take there too? It's the same sort of thing. So that's why either the roster is broken in a way, or you need to try Naz at the 3 in that sort of way. I don't know how well, I don't know how to make your Beringer needs to play thing work without shifting what positions guys are playing. So do you feel comfortable if you're saying Joan Beringer needs to play? Do you feel comfortable with Naz Reid then playing 12, 15 minutes a night at the 3?
Just going to restate what I wrote on Word in red for number 3. This isn't a question. It's just a burning statement. You have to play Joan Beringer. And I followed that up with, if it comes at the cost of Rob or Jalen or TJ, or even putting Naz at the 3, parentheses, Dane would be happy. That's fine. I'm okay with it. Like, I mean, and it sucks for like JC. I think Jalen Clark is the guy maybe I'm the highest on right now of those 3 guys, just because I can see a little potential. But yes, I understand that every action has a reaction. So if Joan Beringer gets 15 minutes a game, you're going to start seeing multiple of the young guys just DNP, and Naz has to play 3. Totally fine with it. Like, I'm totally okay with that, because again, I do kind of circle back to, well, one, the second most impressive highlight that you watched on draft night when they showed the Beringer stock footage is him just sprinting up and down the court. And that might help a team that is 24th in first half net rating. Like a team that has energy issues. Why not? I mean, Jalen Clark tries this and he does a good job. And there was that awesome stat about when he plays 14 minutes or more a game, which they finally broke. But like, maybe Beringer just gives them some, the organization has told you and I this, that like Beringer, the young puppy, as I'm about to learn, like, is giving new life to Rudy Gobert. And that's why you're seeing, I think, despite how awkward it is, like Rudy Gobert is up to 15 to 1, by the way, to win Defensive Player of the Year. Got him at 48 to 1 a couple weeks ago. Like, hello. But I think maybe that could give some life to this staleness. And also, you can't talk about Ennis anymore, Dane, without talking about the CBA and the second apron and all this stuff. And it's like, I would rather try with Beringer this month. And if it's like, yo, dude, he is so not ready, he is the quintessential 2 years away from being 2 years away thing, then at least okay, now we have to spend some assets to go fix that thing. But this team is still limited in what it can do transactionally. And I think you have to always look in-house. Like, if you're balling on a budget, you got to know, can I repurpose that Rubbermaid for something else before I go out and buy new stuff? Because they don't have a lot of capital to spend. They have a 7-foot French guy on the roster. He might be raw as hell, but does just having him around the rim and running hard improve some of this stuff? And if it doesn't, egg on my face. But then it's easier for Tim Connelly to be like, all right, Portland, what's up? Right? Like Robert Williams, will you flip him for 2 seconds or something? So there is an opportunity cost, though. You're right. Like, multiple of the young guys that we already complain about not getting enough minutes would have to essentially not play so that Naz could get more of those minutes. But I am okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Last one, we'll do this quick. Where do you think the Wolves finish in the Western Conference standings this season?
This season or at the end of the month? This season?
This season.
Okay.
Yeah. And let me frame it by this. If I'm bringing it up, given the Jokic injury seems to open a path to a top 4 seed for the Wolves, right? That I don't think was there prior to the Jokic injury, or was certainly more unlikely. As we're looking at this right now, the Wolves are 2.5 games behind the Denver Nuggets, who are currently the 3 seed in the Western Conference. I mean, I've just watched enough Denver Nuggets minutes without Nikola Jokic on the floor over the past few years to know that team's not going to exactly be on a tear here for the next month, and is going to drop some in the standings. So yeah, I think the question is, because Jokic is going to miss a significant amount of time right now, do you think the Wolves are going to finish the season in the top 4 in the West?
What a great way to close this, because yes. Well, also,
right.
I just spent an hour bitching about how bad it is, they're 8th in net rating. I do, and I think the Nuggets thing that you mentioned, they're 2.5 games back of the Nuggets, and Jokic is out what appears to be 4 weeks and then reevaluated. We'll see how it actually long it takes them. You also have to mention that last night or 2 nights ago, like Valanciunas now, their backup center is out, and like they are so thin right now with no Jokic, no Valanciunas, no Braun, no Aaron Gordon, no Cam Johnson. Like they could really slide, and I think they will, honestly. And I think that's going to make for a really interesting talking point come March and April of like, okay, the Nuggets are like the 7 seed, and now everyone's trying to dodge them to be 2 or 3 in the standings, because that's, you don't, home court advantage, whatever. Like you don't want to play the Nuggets in the first round. So I also watch a lot of other teams in the West. I think the Spurs are really, really good. I think the Thunder, obviously the Thunder, although they showed they can bleed, like that Lakers thing is another one that's interesting, is like, I think all of their losses in December were by like 15 or more points. Like they just get spanked. And what are they going to do in the standings? And I don't know if you have the standings again, but like you say all of that to be like the Wolves are 1.5 games out of the 4 seed, right? Like they're 1.5. All the stuff I've been complaining about recently, it's like and maybe that's why everything we said will just get ignored, and they're just going to keep letting the cake try to bake, because the Nuggets are going to slip and the Lakers are going to slip, and the Rockets, do they have a move in them? But I do think they're going to for sure finish in the top 6. Like I really do. Top 4 also. I think they're going to get there, which I know just makes everything I said sound so stupid, but I don't know if they're the same thing, right? It's like, hey, you blew out the Bulls, but they didn't have a backcourt. Like you climbed the Western Conference standings, but it's like, yeah, but Denver is playing a bunch of G Leaguers. So does that make you feel better? Because to me, it's all about, what does this look like come April 15th, right? It's not about, can we get to the 4 seed? This team didn't need a top 4 seed to make a little noise last year. So do you think they're going to finish as the top 4 seed in the West come the end of the season?
Yeah, I would say, like, if I had to put a number on it, like 50-50 4 seed versus 5 seed, like
100% chance of like one of those 2 seeds, right?
Yeah, which maybe that's a little over the top. I'm sure it's a couple percent on the 6 and a couple percent on the 3 or whatever. But yeah, I think that opens things up. I think it maybe opens up a first round series, Denver, Minnesota, potentially. I know we got a long ways to go, but just scoping this out at this moment, at the start of 2026, I would anticipate Denver coming down in a way that I wouldn't have expected before. So then it kind of becomes a battle for the Wolves with the Lakers to be that 4th team, if I'm going to put Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Houston above them. I'm really looking forward to that game against Houston, by the way.
Yeah.
Is that in about 2 weeks from now? Oh, I want to see what that one looks like from a matchup standpoint, which won't necessarily determine the standings or whatever, but I want to think about them as a first round playoff matchup potentially too. But yeah, I think it's at least close that their expected finish would be 4th. And pre Jokic injury, I think my answer would have expected finish would have been 5th or 6th. So it's just kind of moving them up one spot in this, and it's no guarantee. Maybe Denver figures it out and is able to play 500 basketball or close to it, without Jokic. That would surprise me. But if they do that, it'll be harder for the Wolves to be able to pass them. But they're very much in range of even the 2 seed, with 45, 48 games left in the season, whatever it is. Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because Jokic is hurt. That's a big difference, and I think there's a big difference if you're the Wolves in being a top 4 seed and hosting a home court playoff series in the first round than being the 5th or 6th seed. So yeah, I think that's a change. Anything else?
It was interesting too, just to build off of that. I was just looking over at the odds to participate in the Western Conference play-in tournament. The Suns are favored right now at minus 290. And if you're following the Western Conference, it's like there's a top 6, then it's like the Suns, and then it's kind of a drop off. But they're saying right now, even though the Suns are a game and a half back of the top 6, like they're going to be in the play-in or whatever. The Lakers are plus 190 to play in the play-in. The Wolves are plus 280, and the Nuggets are plus 300. So like those guys, those Sharps, like they still think the Wolves have a better chance of falling into the play-in than Denver does, albeit a small odd variance. Which is interesting because again, like that Denver team, if you haven't watched it lately, they got a big win in Toronto, but like they're banged up and they don't have anyone to play center now after they had this great plan of like this awesome, strong front court. All like they're missing like 3 starters or 4 starters in their 6-man. So
dude, it was I was listening to Zach Lowe and Adam Maras when I was walking over here. They're talking. Obviously, Adam's been on the show a few times, covers the Nuggets. And when they're talking about like Day'Ron Holmes and stuff, like who's going to be playing for them, I'm like they're at like the Leonard Miller point.
100%. Yeah.
Their
Rocco Zikarsky is starting at center for the Nuggets.
Like I mean. It's unfortunate. Denver is in a rough place from an injury standpoint, though. Not all of the guys are going to be out as long as Jokic is. I think Brown and Gordon are potentially back in a couple weeks. Cam Johnson too. I don't know if they're going to be without their. I don't know. They're missing 4 of their 5 best players right now. Like 5 of their best 6. Like. It's not going to be forever, but it creates a little bit of an opportunity for here, which to your January point, if Jokic is going to miss January, it's a pretty big month for the.
It's never been easier to climb the Western standings right now than it is with what the Lakers are going through in Denver. And then maybe, just another weird injury here or there, but simultaneously it's like, are you just band-aiding it? And like, can you climb and eat empty calories, or do you have a real issue that needs to be addressed? And I think that's why these next 16 games are going to be truly fascinating to see. Not only
is that what it is? 16 to the deadline.
16 games in January, 19 to the deadline. So, like I said, a lot of travel mixed in there. I think a lot of Eastern Conference opponents, but then they play the Cavs back to back. They play the Spurs a couple times. It's going to get very difficult between now and February 6th, whatever the deadline is, and they're going to have to answer some big questions on the court and off the court.
Right. This was fun, man. I don't have anything else unless you do.
I got nothing else. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everyone had a good holiday season and can start a new year with a fresh mentality. Again, not about basketball or anything like that. Just I hope everyone can start a fresh year, hit some of those goals, and take care of themselves because it's more important than ever.
Absolutely. You guys can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Theige. You can listen to him on the show every Friday and sometimes on Tuesdays. I think maybe next week we'll get 2 in there once we start getting back to a full cadence. But we're grateful for you, and just always willing to adjust times to make it happen for this weird schedule that ends up shaking out. So I'll talk to you. I'm sure later today, but I'll talk to you later on the podcast later this week. And we'll keep moving with this thing. Next episode will be Monday morning with Jace, at which point they will have played 2 more games, right? They got the Miami game on Saturday, 4 p.m. start. Love that. And then at the Wizards on Sunday for a 5 p.m. start. So we'll have those 2 games to talk about with Jace come Monday morning. Until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah.